Here on the Montgomery Corridor, mostly on violent crime related to homicides and shootings at some of the apartment complexes. And so with that, I'm going to have Mayor Keller is going to kick things off, and then we'll have Chief Medina talk after that, and some of our other command staff give some insight. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. I'm going to just check our traffic noise here. Let me see if this works a little. Okay. That a little better? Anyone? Let's check there. No difference? Yeah, we'll be okay. Okay. All right, so there's obviously a lot of issues with respect to crime going on in our community. We continue to address this issue with a couple of different strategies, and also with what I believe is a lasting approach, meaning that we have to continue to take a chunk out of each aspect of crime and move the ball forward, essentially down the field, one first down at a time. There is no easy fix. There's no one-stop solution that is going to change everything that's happening. But we are going to keep pushing, and we're going to keep grinding towards what we believe will actually reduce crime. And one of the areas we're announcing today is this effort to be able to deploy resources, community resources, in areas that have been highly impacted for crime. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And so we often see that, crime, it moves, but it also typically, lately especially, has been concentrated around apartments, hotels, and motels. And in particular areas where those things converge in our city. And one of those happens to be, of course, this sort of Montgomery Carlisle corridor. Mostly this area around here, but also a little bit up by the old Skaggs Alpha Beta, which is either Smith's or Albertsons, right up there. And of course, with Del Norte High School being right there, it's an especially important area of concern. Now, we know that there's a lot of related issues that are driving some of this all over the country. We know that underemployment, mental health, and addiction that are associated with coming out of the COVID pandemic are driving up crime rates all over America, and no doubt that's true here in Albuquerque. What we're going to do right here is begin a 60-day Montgomery Corridor operation that's designed to address this intersection between essentially narcotics, apartments, and these areas that historically have been challenged. And so that's why we're out here on site today. This area is being handled by our Northeast Area Command. So you're going to hear from our acting commander for this operation on some of the details here in just a minute. And this also is going to deploy some of our mobile assets that we can use. And obviously after 60 days, we'll reevaluate and see what we can do. There's also additional resources on the way coming from both our CIP bond package and the state legislature investments that could include things like gunshot detection and other proven technologies that we do not have in this area right now, but we very much have prioritized this area for the next round of infrastructure funding. So with more details on this, our Chief of Police, Harold Medina. Chief.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like the mayor said, we started this operation at the end of March, and we'll continue it through the end of May. And in a way, this is about bringing the Albuquerque Police Department to the community. And what we're doing a little bit different is we want to make sure our outreach and our ability to work with the community is hand in hand with our enforcement efforts. We know an increased presence deters crime. When there's officers seen, they're around, they're mobile, people are less likely to commit crime. Since the 1st of January along the Montgomery Corridor, APD has investigated a total of 4 homicides, 3 separate events, one which involved 2 victims. Additionally, we had 2 other shootings with injuries at apartments between Carlisle and San Mateo. And this isn't just about cutting crime, but also the outreach. And we've talked about this quite a bit, how we have to have that balancing act with one hand enforcing the laws, making the community safe, but on the other hand, building trust with partnerships and helping the community learn how they could help themselves to ensure that they don't become victims, and about helping strengthening their ability to not be victims. So with some more details about this and how this is going to wrap up here on San Mateo and what next steps are going to be, Deputy Chief Donnie Oliveira is going to cover that and brief you on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to talk more about how exactly this operation will be conducted and our plans moving forward. We're utilizing high visibility patrol officers and tactics, meaning we have mobile command posts put out at a visible location. This will be put out on Thursday through Sunday for about 72 hours, which will be staffed by police service aid at all times. We're also using the real-time crime center to help monitor some of the activities that are occurring throughout this area. We have patrol officers and bike officers that are patrolling the Montgomery Corridor all the way up to Albertsons and all complexes along the roads, and to include this area plus apartment complexes surrounding Montgomery, the Carlisle, and San Mateo area. Moving forward, we are utilizing this as a citywide model as a way to continue our efforts in community policing and reducing crime and overall improving the quality of lives for our citizens. We're also getting looking to getting an additional mobile command post, so we will be able to conduct these operations in more areas of the cities. So our tactics will most likely include 60-day operations to be separated throughout the different area commands to address the issues that are occurring within those areas of that area command. At this point, Commander Greg Weber will be talking about the successes that we've already had during this operation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Mayor, Chief, thank you for having me here, and thank you all for coming. You know, one of my core tenets to my officers is that when an area is plagued with several shootings, citizens, when they live in that area, nothing helps them feel safer than knowing that there is a consistent positive police presence in the area to deal with those issues. So we put numbers out all the time, but the perception of crime and the perception of police presence in the area, I believe, is very, very important to how people feel when they live in an area or when they pass through an area every day. And so when my staff and I sat down to try and put together this plan, what we decided is we need to have a combination of outreach, where we have that positive interaction with our citizens that live here and we give them crime prevention tips. And then we need to combine that with enforcement on those people that drive crime in the area. So we don't want the people who live here and work here every day to feel like they're being targeted and punished for crimes that they're not involved in. We really want to target those individuals that we believe drive the crime in this area. Narcotics, violence, that kind of thing. We've been doing this for about 2 weeks now, and over the last 2 weeks, we've done over 200 patrols of the apartment complexes and businesses between San Mateo and Carlisle. My officers have conducted over 40 field briefings where the officers get together at a shift change, and right before going on duty, the supervisor has to pass information to them about things that we're going to be focusing on that day. We have them get together out here in these apartment complexes and at the businesses just to let them know we're here. We've done 6 organized outreach activities. We've set up tables. We've passed out literature on how to avoid being a victim of crime, ways that you can make changes to your lifestyle. We've offered tips on violent crime prevention, and we've gone door to door and we've spoken with people and owners of these complexes just to let them know that we're here. And so I believe thus far we've been very, very successful in accomplishing what we want to do, a balance of outreach and enforcement in the area. And with that said, I won't take too much of your time. Chief or Mayor, did you have anything else to add? Thank you all.
So at this point, we'll stand for any questions that any may have.
So is the focus narcotics and violent crime?
Yes, it is. You want to talk about that, Chief?
Yes, the focus is we'd like to reduce narcotics activity. We know that's a nexus to violent crime, But I think the way this operation is done different than what we've done in the past, and you heard Commander Weber talk about it. This is about working with the community. And the last thing we want to do is criminalize the individuals who live here who aren't committing crime. So in the past, when we were committed to operations and we focused on traffic citations and PC to stop cars, we stopped that. We want to make sure that we're working with the community, not criminalizing it, and we're giving them the information needed so that they can help us solve some of the problems that are occurring. So we will continue this trend. As we wrap up here at the end of May, we will determine where we're moving this operation to, and it will become a new part of how we do business as long as it's showing successes. And I could probably tell you right now, Eubank and Lomas is probably an area that we'll be looking at to move to next. So we are looking to see how we continue this trend, and it's about building that strong bond with the community. Thank you.
Chief, I have a question for you. You've talked a lot about community policing for years. Now we're driving that again to kind of cover this homicide issue, especially along the Montgomery Corridor. We're talking about being seen, being out in the public, making people feel safer. Is it actually working? I mean, we're making people feel nice and warm inside, but there was another homicide last night. There's been, I think, nearly 40 this year. Is that...
You know, I think the one thing that everybody needs to remember, and the public, if I could stress to them, is there's not one magic way that we're going to fix the crime crisis in Albuquerque. There's not. We need to make sure that we're working with the entire criminal justice system. I think it was on Tuesday morning, for the first time that I ever remember, I sat down with both District Court, Metro Court, representatives from the mental health and from substance abuse programs. We sat down with the Public Defender's Office. We sat down with the District Attorney's Office, representatives from the county and the city, and the Sheriff's Department. And our goal in that meeting is, and I've said it before, we have to fix the criminal justice system in the city of Albuquerque. This is not an Albuquerque Police Department process in which we're going to police our way out of this crime. We have to work with the system. We have to make sure that people who have substance abuse problems get the resources they need. But also, where we draw that line in the sand, that you now need to stay incarcerated. And we have to stop that revolving door of the criminal justice system, but it's nobody's fault. We have to work together to make sure we're communicating, exchanging what resources the city government has, what the county government has, and how we could make Albuquerque a better place by all of us working together. And we'll continue that communication, and we'll continue working together until we find a solution. Community policing has its function. It's to build trust within the community, to engage the community, but it is not the only solution that is needed at the point that we are at in this city.
Chief, how many homicides has there been this year?
Gilbert, do you have
35.
35.
We've had multiple news conferences this year to bring a lot of the same sound bites. Two questions. One, you said stop the revolving door. Mayor, this might be for you. Would you talk to your former lawmaker? We talked about this before. Former lawmaker. Would you talk to state lawmakers to see if there could be some changes? And then the other question is, in the past, federal agents have come here to help with the crime crisis. Would you invite them back?
You know, there is no inviting federal agents back because we have been working with them. I know there was a lot of communication that extra resources were brought into Albuquerque at one point. We've always worked with our federal partners. I've met recently with DEA. We're getting ready to do some operations within the city. We have task force officers now assigned again to the U.S. Marshals Service. We have task force officers with ATF to help us with those violent felony cases. And I know that there's things that are outside of our control, and we may ask what the legislature can do. But I think it starts with us working with all of our partners in the metro area and making sure we're all on the same page, like I described earlier, and knowing where our struggles are so we could ensure that we make the right recommendations to to our legislatures and make sure that they have a full picture of what we're asking for before we make those asks. But I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Sure, I think the chief touched on that aspect, and what happened, I think, in past years was, frankly, sound bites. It wasn't that different than what we were doing anyway, and it was really politically driven. It wasn't materially different from APD's perspective. So we'll continue to work with all our partners. I would say this: I am in conversation with our legislators, especially the Albuquerque area ones. We needed more progress in the session on crime, and our legislatures feel the same way. And we're in discussion about what we're going to do over the summer, whether it might be a task force or put together a collective package that they can take to Santa Fe. And we will be asking it to be a priority in the 30-day session and crime fighting to be messaged so that it's germane. And so we started having those conversations just about last week when the session ended, and their interim process starts this summer. And so we do want to integrate crime fighting into the whole summer legislative cycle. Gilbert? Anything else?
You guys mentioned kind of businesses in the area, the motels. Can you talk about the focus on this area? Is it getting people who already live here to call Crime Stoppers, or something to come out together and drive those businesses, maybe to more crime in the area?
Great question, yeah. And we'll bring up the team to mention that intersection with Crime Stoppers since they're here. So you should touch on that.
Thank you for the question. So, yes, there is an effort to involve businesses and apartment complex owners. So we've been in touch. We've actually, when I mentioned the outreach activities earlier, we've been in touch with every single complex down here, and we've got outreach activities scheduled at every single complex. So one of the things that my crime prevention specialist offers, and this is available anywhere in the city, are those crime prevention through environmental design analysis. We do it for businesses, we do it for apartment complexes, we do it for residents. Anybody, any one of you could request it. And it's something that we believe strongly helps us deter crime and make it harder for criminals to do what they do. My day shift team has done a coalition. They've built a coalition over here at 5000 Montgomery. It's a large business strip mall area, and as well as across the street at 4300 San Mateo. We've done 65 business contacts there just in the last 2 weeks. We've received 311 call-ins from business owners saying, "We appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for the outreach that you've done here." So I know that it's working. Our numbers, I don't have all the crime numbers for you yet. That's going to take time for us to develop that information. But there is a plan to track it and compare it to what's happened previously. And I do believe we will be successful.
Do you guys think it's the high traffic area that's leading to the crime?
Well, so obviously Montgomery is one of the most heavily traveled roads in Albuquerque, I would venture to say. We know that we have traffic issues alone on Montgomery. We have drag racing issues on Montgomery. So right away, because Montgomery is such a popular corridor for that kind of thing, you're already bringing an element into an area that might not otherwise be here. So I do believe that plays a role. There's, I believe, 12 or 13 apartment complexes between San Mateo and Carlisle. So you're talking about a lot of people in a small area. And so, of course, you're going to have lots of calls, and you have the potential for issues to happen. Thank you.
So just a notice of the mobile substation we have. This is what's here from Thursdays through Sundays, and we're going to be getting a new one hopefully soon that will deploy around the city to every area command. Right now we have to share it with crime scenes and other functions, so it's not ideal, but that's what we want out there for the community. So we do have an online question about our homicide unit. I think KRQE is asking about the size of our homicide unit, and Chief Medina is going to talk about that.
You know, there's a question about our homicide unit and it being understaffed. Since this administration took over, initially we doubled the size of our homicide unit, and recently, in the last 6 months, we actually grew that again, once again doubling it. So when we started in December of 2017, there was about 5 homicide detectives assigned to the homicide division. Right now with sergeants and detectives, we have 16 assigned. So We've grown Homicide to ensure that the families of victims of homicides can get answers. We're also looking, we'll be adding a victims advocate specifically for homicides to help homicide families stay in contact with the things that are occurring, and we'll be working towards that in the future. In terms of deterrence, I want to just put some focus here on these Crime Stopper signs, even signage and everything that goes along with it, and letting people know that they're being watched and there's engagement from the community helps. And I don't know if Crime Stoppers wants to say anything. We'll let Gene go.
A lot of folks out there might see things or hear things, and it might be beneficial to solving crimes. So these signs will tell you out there to call 843-STOP to give confidential information, and you will never be asked for any identifiers for yourself, and you could get a reward if it leads to an arrest. So watch for those signs on buildings, apartments, businesses. Thank you.
Any other final questions? If not, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And I know that a lot of the kids are out here. They want to see the horses, so we'll give them some time with them. But thanks, everyone, for coming. And just reach out to me if you have follow-up questions. Thank you.